All right, so you want to know what skills are going to be like super important in 2025? Well, we're taking a deep dive in some really interesting stuff from the English Globe podcast to help you get ready, kind of like we're building a bridge, a bridge to success in a world that's changing super fast.
And what's really cool is that the English Globe doesn't just talk about like specific techie skills.
Yeah.
They emphasize like personal growth and always learning new stuff, with English being the base.
Yeah, English is like the foundation for our bridge.
Hmm.
And the first piece we got to put down is figuring out why skills are even more important now than they were before.
The world's changing so fast, right?
Yeah.
Driven by technology and globalization, whole industries are being disrupted, not just individual jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Remember all that talk about retail dying out?
Huh.
Well, look how Amazon's algorithms are changing the whole shopping experience.
It's crazy how fast things are moving. Even going to the doctor is different now with telemedicine
Hmm.
and self-driving cars. That's not sci-fi anymore. That's a whole industry about to be like flipped upside down.
Exactly. So the main takeaway here is that the most valuable skill is adaptability. Can you learn new things? Can you adjust to new ways of working? Those are the questions employers are going to be asking in 2025.
So it's not just about having specific skills. It's about always being ready to learn, to upskill and reskill.
Exactly. And the English Globe points to 5 key areas that are going to be super crucial. These are like the main supports for our bridge leading to success in 2025.
Okay, let's start with the first one. Digital literacy and tech skills. Sounds kind of scary, but the English Globe says it doesn't have to be about becoming a coding expert overnight.
Yeah, that's right. It's about understanding the basics of how technology works and being comfortable using digital tools. For some, that might mean getting really good at using everyday apps like Google Drive or Trello. For others, it might be learning a specific programming language like Python, which is used in like everything from building websites to analyzing data.
So, depending on what you do, you'll want to focus on different tech skills, but the important thing is to have that solid foundation. So, what's the next support beam on our bridge?
Communication skills. Now, you might be thinking, well, I'm learning English. Isn't that enough?
Hmm.
And you're definitely on the right track. But in a globalized world, communication is about more than just being good at English.
It's about understanding cultural nuances, right? Like what might be considered polite in one culture could be totally different somewhere else.
Exactly. Building strong relationships across borders takes sensitivity and the ability to communicate effectively with people from different backgrounds. This is especially important for someone like you who's trying to, stay ahead of the game. Imagine you're making a business deal with a company in Japan or working on a project with a team in Brazil. Being able to communicate clearly and respectfully is like essential.
Okay, so we've got our digital skills and our communication skills. What's the next plank on this bridge we're building?
Problem solving and critical thinking. Think of this as the steel cables holding the whole structure together. The English Globe uses a great example. Imagine your company's sales suddenly drop. Someone needs to figure out why and come up with a solution fast.
That's where critical thinking comes in, right? Not just jumping to conclusions, but really looking at the situation, the data, and figuring out the root cause.
And it's not just work, Critical thinking is crucial for navigating the constant flow of information we're faced with every day, especially online. It's about questioning assumptions, evaluating sources, and forming your own informed opinions.
So critical thinking helps us stay informed and keeps us from being misled, which is more important now than ever with all the information overload out there. What's the next skill we need to add to our bridge?
Emotional intelligence. Now, this one might seem a little less tangible than, say, coding or data analysis, but the English Globe argues it's just as essential, particularly in like collaborative work environments.
Yeah, it makes sense. We've all had that coworker who's like technically brilliant, but just can't seem to work well with others.
Right. Emotional intelligence is about understanding and managing your own emotions, as well as recognizing and empathizing with the emotions of others. The English Globe breaks it down into key parts like self-awareness, empathy, social skills, and self-regulation.
So someone with high emotional intelligence can understand their own strengths and weaknesses and put themselves in other people's shoes and build strong, positive relationships.
Exactly. And remember, this isn't just about being nice. It's about understanding how emotions impact, like our behavior, our decisions, and ultimately our success. This ties in nicely with our final and maybe most important skill, adaptability and lifelong learning.
The English Globe made a great point about this. Remember when video conferencing suddenly became the norm? If you weren't willing to learn those new tools, you were basically left out of the conversation.
Exactly. Adaptability is the ability to embrace change and learn new things quickly. In a world that's constantly changing, this is no longer a nice to have, it's like a necessity. And it's totally connected to lifelong learning. You got to be curious, open to new experiences, and willing to, constantly update your knowledge and skills.
All right, so we've laid down the five main supports for our bridge: digital literacy and tech skills, communication skills, problem solving and critical thinking, emotional intelligence and adaptability, and lifelong learning. But how do we actually start building?
That's where things get really exciting. The English Globe highlights the incredible amount of free or low-cost resources out there for anyone with an internet connection. We're talking YouTube tutorials, podcasts like the English Globe itself, language learning apps like Duolingo, and even platforms like Coursera and LinkedIn Learning, which offer like thousands of courses on almost any topic you can imagine.
It's amazing how much you can learn without spending a fortune on traditional education. But with so many options, it's easy to get overwhelmed. Where do you even begin?
That's a great point, and that's where a little planning can be super helpful. The English Globe recommends making a learning plan. Break down your big goals into smaller, more manageable steps.
So instead of saying, I want to be fluent in English or I want to learn how to code, you set smaller, more achievable goals.
Exactly. Let's say you want to improve your digital literacy. Maybe you start by focusing on one Google Docs feature each week. Once you've mastered that, you move on to creating presentations in Google Slides. Then you could explore more advanced data analysis tools. By breaking down your learning journey into smaller steps, you create a sense of accomplishment and stay motivated.
I love that. It's all about setting ourselves up for success and making sure we don't get discouraged by aiming too high too quickly. Now, the English Globe really emphasized the importance of English itself, right? I mean, it makes sense. They are an English language podcast after all.
Well, what's really interesting is that they present English fluency as more than just a communication skill. They say it's almost a prerequisite for mastering many of the other skills we've been talking about. Think about it. Most software and app instructions are in English. A huge amount of online learning material is in English. And increasingly, English is becoming the default language of business, especially in international contexts.
So in a way, English fluency is like the key that unlocks the whole world of knowledge and opportunity.
Exactly. It's like that bridge we're building. English is the sturdy foundation that allows you to connect with people, resources, and information from all over the world.
Yeah.
For someone like you who's, actively trying to stay ahead of the curve and get ready for the future, English fluency is absolutely essential.
Okay, I'm convinced. English is the key. But let's be real for a minute. Learning new things can be tough. You get overwhelmed, you lose motivation, you might even start doubting yourself. How do we overcome those challenges?
Don't worry. The English Globe doesn't just point out the challenges. They offer some really fantastic advice specifically for learners. They break it down into four key areas: time management, staying motivated, overcoming self-doubt, and facing the fear of failure. Let's start with time management.
I think a lot of people feel like they just don't have enough time to learn new things. They're already juggling work, family, social commitments. How do you fit it all in?
The English Globe emphasizes that you don't need hours and hours each day. Even just 15 minutes a day dedicated to learning can lead to significant progress over time.
Okay, that feels doable. But what about when motivation starts to dip? We've all been there, right? You start with all these good intentions, then life gets in the way, and suddenly you haven't touched your learning materials in weeks.
That's where setting small, achievable goals comes in. Instead of focusing on the big, overwhelming end goal, break it down into bite-sized pieces. And don't forget to celebrate those wins, no matter how small they seem.
I love that. Celebrate the small wins. But what about self-doubt? I think that holds a lot of people back from even trying. They think I'm not smart enough or I'm too old to learn new things. How do we combat those negative thoughts?
The English Globe encourages a growth mindset, right? It's the belief that your abilities can improve with effort and practice. You're not stuck where you are. You have the potential to grow and learn new things, no matter your age or background.
Okay, growth mindset, engaged. But what about fear of failure? I think that's a huge obstacle for a lot of learners. They're so afraid of making mistakes that they don't even try.
Here's a powerful perspective shift from the English Globe. Mistakes are essential to learning. They're not something to be ashamed of. They're valuable feedback that helps us improve.
So instead of seeing mistakes as failures, we should see them as opportunities to learn and grow. I love that. But you know what always helps me stay motivated? Hearing stories of people who've been there, done that, and come out on top.
Well, you're in luck. The English Globe shares some inspiring stories of people who achieve success through like self-learning and dedication. And what's really interesting is that they come from all walks of life, different countries, different backgrounds, proving that anyone can achieve their goals with the right mindset and approach.
Okay, tell me more. Who are these inspiring individuals?
They highlight four individuals: Maria, a software developer from Mexico; Ahmed, a digital marketer from Egypt; David, an IT professional from the Philippines; and Sarah, a nurse from Brazil. Let's start with Maria's story. She didn't speak much English and didn't have access to, expensive education. But she dreamed of becoming a software developer. So she used free resources like YouTube tutorials, online courses, and podcasts to learn both English and digital literacy.
Wait, so she was learning English while learning how to code? That's incredible. What about Ahmed?
Ahmed had a similar story. He had limited resources, but big dreams of becoming a digital marketer. He used free language learning apps, English podcasts, and YouTube to learn both English and the skills he needed to succeed in digital marketing. Eventually, he started his own online business and now works with international clients.
Wow, that's inspiring. He built his own business from scratch using free resources and his determination to learn. It really shows that anything is possible if you set your mind to it. What about David? What's his story?
David was an IT professional from the Philippines who was determined to work for a multinational IT company. He used free online resources to improve his tech skills and his English, which ultimately landed him an internship. Now he's a senior developer at the company.
So there's hope for us, non-techies. It's amazing how English fluency really opened doors for him. What about Sarah? What did she do?
Sarah was a nurse from Brazil who dreamed of working in the United States. But her English wasn't strong enough. She took online English courses that focused specifically on medical terminology, aced the necessary exams, and now she's working at a hospital in New York.
It's incredible how a good grasp of English really paved the way for her to achieve her dream. These stories are so inspiring. But you know what would make this even more engaging for our listeners?
What's that?
Let's play a game. The English Globe did this fun Guess the Skill segment. We can do the same with our listeners right now. Ready?
I'm game.
Okay, first clue. This skill is all about using technology effectively. It involves using software, apps, and online tools to communicate and work efficiently. It's crucial for the modern workplace and helps you connect with people, all over the world. What skill am I talking about? Think carefully, listeners, and see if you can guess before we reveal the answer.
Take your time. No need to rush.
All right, time's up. The answer is digital literacy and tech skills. Did you get it right? I bet you did. Let's try another one.
Bring it on.
Okay, next clue. This skill is all about understanding and managing your own emotions, as well as understanding the emotions of others. It helps you communicate better and work more effectively in teams. What skill is this?
This one's a bit more subtle, but equally important in today's world.
And the answer is emotional intelligence. Give yourself a pat on the back if you got that one right. Ready for the final challenge?
Hit us with it.
Last clue. This skill is all about thinking critically, analyzing problems, and finding creative solutions. It's important in every aspect of life, from work to school to, personal challenges. What skill am I describing?
I'm sure you've got this one. It's a skill we've been talking about quite a bit today.
And the answer is problem solving and critical thinking. We hope you enjoyed that little brain workout. It's amazing how playing a simple game can help solidify these important skills in our minds.
That was fun. And it really highlights how these skills aren't just like abstract concepts or things we can actively develop and play with, but with so much information out there, it can be tough to know where to start. That's why we're here to help you build that bridge to success in 2025 and beyond.
Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll delve even deeper into these essential skills, explore real-world examples, and give you some actionable advice on how to start building your own bridge to a brighter future.
Welcome back. We're continuing our deep dive into those top skills for 2025 based on what we learned from the English Globe podcast. Remember, in part 1, we talked about why these skills are so important in a world that's changing so rapidly. Well, now it's time to put on our hard hats and start building that bridge to success.
And to make sure our bridge is like strong and dependable, we got to reinforce those key supports.
Yeah.
Remember, we're talking about digital literacy and tech skills, communication skills, problem solving and critical thinking, emotional intelligence, and uh, adaptability and lifelong learning. Right. These are the skills that'll help you like really thrive in 2025 and beyond. And the good news is the English Globe gives some really practical advice on, how to develop these skills, even if you're starting from scratch.
They emphasize that it's not about becoming like an expert overnight. It's about taking small, consistent steps and focusing on progress, not perfection.
I think that's a really important point. It's easy to like get overwhelmed when you think about, mastering all these skills, but if you break down into like smaller pieces, it becomes a lot less intimidating.
Exactly. Let's start with digital literacy and tech skills. Remember, this isn't just about coding, although that's a valuable skill. It's about understanding how technology works, being comfortable using digital tools, and knowing how to find information online.
The English Globe made a great point about like starting with the tools that you already use every day. Like how many of us actually know, all the features of Google Docs or Microsoft Word.
Right. There's so much power in those everyday programs that we often just like overlook. Maybe you spend hours in Excel, but you've never really explored its data analysis capabilities, or use PowerPoint for presentations, but you've never experimented with the animation features.
It's like we have all these amazing tools, right there at our fingertips, but we're only using like a tiny bit of their potential.
And then there are all those free resources online.
Mm.
Platforms like Khan Academy offer like amazing tutorials on everything from, basic computer skills to advanced programming concepts. And if you want to learn like a specific software program, chances are you'll find tons of tutorials on YouTube.
YouTube is like a gold mine for learning new tech skills. I've even seen tutorials on like how to use specific features of design software like Photoshop or Illustrator.
Exactly. And if you prefer a more structured approach, there are tons of online courses available. Websites like Coursera and edX offer courses from like top universities around the world, many of them free or very affordable.
So no matter what your learning style is or your budget, there are resources out there to help you build those digital literacy and tech skills. What about communication skills? What kind of practical advice does the English Globe offer for that?
They really emphasize the importance of active listening. It sounds simple, but it's a skill that many people struggle with.
Hmm.
In a world of distractions, it's easy to get like caught up in your own thoughts and kind of tune out what others are saying.
I'm definitely guilty of that sometimes, especially when I'm trying to like multitask.
We all are. But the English Globe reminds us that active listening is about more than just, hearing the words. It's about paying attention to the speaker's tone of voice, their body language, and the underlying message. It's about asking clarifying questions and showing that you're truly engaged in the conversation.
Right. It's about making the other person feel heard and understood.
Exactly. And in a globalized world where we're interacting with people from so many, diverse cultures, active listening becomes even more important. It's about being aware of cultural differences in communication styles and adapting our approach accordingly.
So, for example, like if I'm working with a team in Japan, I might need to be more mindful of nonverbal cues, since Japanese culture often places a high value on indirect communication.
That's a great example. And then the English Globe encourages us to like embrace those cultural differences as opportunities to learn and grow rather than seeing them as obstacles.
All right, let's move on to problem solving and critical thinking. I think these skills are often seen as something that like you're either born with or you're not.
Yeah.
But the English Globe says they can be developed with practice. How do they suggest we do that?
One of their key recommendations is to practice deconstructing problems. Instead of getting overwhelmed by a big complex issue, break it down into smaller, more manageable pieces.
So instead of saying, "Oh my gosh, I have to solve this massive problem," you say, "Okay, what are the like individual components of this problem? What are the specific challenges that I need to address?"
Exactly. And once you've broken down the problem, you can start to analyze each component, gather information, and brainstorm potential solutions. The English Globe also emphasizes the importance of of challenging assumptions.
Because sometimes we get like stuck in our own ways of thinking, right? We make assumptions about the problem or the solution without really questioning them.
Right. And those assumptions can prevent us from seeing the full picture and coming up with the best possible solutions. So it's crucial to step back, ask why a lot, and consider different perspectives.
So critical thinking is about being curious, asking questions, and challenging the status quo. And the English Globe suggests that we can apply these skills not just to work problems, but to like everyday life as well.
Absolutely. Think about how much information we're bombarded with every day, especially online. Critical thinking helps us sift through all that information, evaluate sources, and determine what's credible and what's not.
So it's about being discerning consumers of information, not just passively absorbing everything we see and hear.
Exactly. And that's becoming increasingly important in a world where misinformation and fake news are so prevalent.
Okay, let's move on to emotional intelligence. I think the skill is often misunderstood. You know, people think it's about being like overly emotional or overly sensitive, but that's not really what it's about, is it?
Not at all. The English Globe explains that emotional intelligence is about um, being aware of and managing your own emotions, as well as understanding and empathizing with the emotions of others.
So it's about being like self-aware, recognizing how our emotions impact our behavior and our interactions with others.
Right. And it's about being able to regulate our emotions so we don't let them control us. For example, if you're feeling stressed or overwhelmed, emotional intelligence helps you recognize those feelings, take a step back, and find healthy ways to cope.
And the other side of emotional intelligence is empathy, right?
Right.
Being able to like understand and share the feelings of others.
Exactly. Empathy allows us to connect with others on a deeper level, build stronger relationships, and navigate challenging situations more effectively. The English Globe emphasizes that emotional intelligence isn't just about being nice. It's about being effective in our interactions with others, both personally and professionally.
It's about building trust, fostering collaboration, and creating a more positive and productive work environment. And that brings us to our final and perhaps most important skill, adaptability and lifelong learning. In a world that's changing so rapidly, how do we stay ahead of the curve and make sure we're constantly evolving?
The English Globe offers some fantastic advice on this. They emphasize that adaptability is about more than just being flexible. It's about having a growth mindset, being open to new experiences, and being willing to step outside your comfort zone.
So it's not just about being able to like adjust to change when it happens. It's about actively seeking out new challenges and opportunities for growth.
Exactly. And that's where lifelong learning comes in.
Yeah.
In the past, people thought of education as something you did once, and then you were done. But in today's world, learning is a continuous process. We need to be constantly updating our knowledge and skills to keep pace with the ever-evolving demands of the workplace and the world around us.
So how do we make sure we're like staying ahead of the curve and not falling behind? The English Globe suggests that it starts with being curious.
Exactly. Make time for exploration. Read books and articles outside your usual areas of interest. Listen to podcasts on diverse topics.
Yeah.
Attend workshops and webinars. The more you expose yourself to new ideas and perspectives, the more adaptable and well-rounded you'll become.
And remember, learning doesn't have to be, formal or expensive. There are so many free resources available online. You can learn a new language, explore a new subject, or develop a new skill all from the comfort of your own home.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to experiment. Try different learning methods and see what works best for you. Some people prefer like structured online courses, while others thrive in more informal, self-directed learning environments.
The key is to find what you enjoy and what keeps you motivated. And remember, learning should be fun. If you're not enjoying the process, you're less likely to stick with it.
That's such an important point. Learning shouldn't feel like a chore. It should be an exciting adventure, a journey of discovery.
So we've explored the 5 key skills for 2025, and we've talked about some practical ways to develop those skills. But what about those moments when we get discouraged, when we feel overwhelmed, or we doubt our abilities?
The English Globe addresses those challenges,
Mm.
head on, offering some really valuable advice on how to stay motivated, overcome self-doubt, and face our fears.
I'm eager to hear their insights on this. I think we've all been there, right? Those moments where we just want to like throw in the towel and say, "This is too hard. I can't do it."
Absolutely. But the English Globe reminds us that those feelings are normal. Everyone experiences self-doubt and frustration at times. The key is to recognize those feelings and find healthy ways to cope with them.
So, what are some like practical strategies for dealing with those moments of self doubt or discouragement? What does the English Globe recommend?
One of their key recommendations is to practice self-compassion. It's about being kind to ourselves, recognizing that we're all human and we all make mistakes. It's about acknowledging our efforts and
Yeah.
celebrating our progress, no matter how small.
That's such an important point. We're often our own like worst critics. We set these, unrealistic expectations for ourselves and then beat ourselves up when we don't meet them. But the English Globe reminds us to be gentle with ourselves, to focus on progress, not perfection.
Exactly,
And
and they emphasize the importance of surrounding ourselves with positive influences.
Mhm.
Connect with people who support your goals and encourage your growth.
Right. It's so much easier to stay motivated and overcome challenges when you have like a strong support system, cheering you on.
And don't forget the power of visualization. The English Globe suggests taking some time each day to visualize yourself achieving your goals. See yourself using those new skills confidently and successfully.
I love that. Visualization is such a powerful tool for manifesting our desires and building our self-belief.
And when you do experience setbacks, don't let them derail you. See them as opportunities to learn and grow. The English Globe encourages us to embrace a growth mindset where we view challenges as stepping stones on our path to success.
So instead of getting discouraged when we like hit a roadblock, we can ask ourselves, what can I learn from this experience? How can I use this setback to become, stronger and more resilient?
Exactly. And remember, the journey of learning and growth is a marathon, not a sprint. There will be ups and downs along the way, but as long as you keep moving forward, even if it's just one small step at a time, you'll eventually reach your destination.
That's such an inspiring message. But I think what really motivates people are, real life examples of success. In part one, we heard those inspiring stories of Maria, Ahmed, David, and Sarah. Are there any other like examples from the English Globe that we can share with our listeners?
They actually highlight a few more individuals who achieved remarkable things through self-learning and dedication. One example is a woman named Chloe from a small town in uh, rural America. She'd always dreamed of working in the fashion industry, but she didn't have, the financial resources to attend a prestigious design school.
So what did she do? Did she just like give up on her dream?
Not at all. Chloe was determined to make her dream a reality. She started by teaching herself, basic sewing and design skills, using free online tutorials and videos. Then she began experimenting with different fabrics and creating her own unique designs.
Wow. So she was really starting from scratch, teaching herself like everything she needed to know.
Exactly. And she wasn't afraid to, put herself out there. She started sharing her designs on social media and quickly gained a following for her, creative and stylish pieces.
So she used social media to like build her own brand and showcase her talents. That's brilliant.
It is. And her hard work and dedication, paid off.
Mhm.
Chloe's designs eventually caught the attention of a major fashion retailer, and she was offered a job as a junior designer.
That's incredible. She went from teaching herself how to sew to working for a major fashion company, all through her own, initiative and determination. What an inspiring story.
It really is. And it highlights the fact that success isn't about, where you come from or what resources you have. It's about having a clear vision, a willingness to work hard, and a belief in your own abilities.
And a willingness to like embrace those challenges and setbacks along the way.
Absolutely. Challenges are an inevitable part of any journey, but it's how we respond to those challenges that truly defines our success.
So, what are some other inspiring examples from the English Globe? I'm eager to hear more stories of people who defied the odds and achieved their dreams.
They also highlight the story of a man named James who grew up in a low income neighborhood in London. He had always been fascinated by technology, but he didn't have access to computers or the internet at home.
So how did he like pursue his passion for technology? That must have been like incredibly challenging.
It was. But James was resourceful and determined. He would spend hours at the local library using their computers to learn everything he could about coding and web development. He also took advantage of free online courses and tutorials to expand his knowledge.
Wow. So he was really like taking initiative, using every resource available to him to learn and grow.
Exactly. And his efforts paid off. James eventually landed a job as a junior web developer at a small tech startup. He quickly impressed his colleagues with his skills and work ethic, and he was promoted to a senior developer position within a year.
That's amazing. He went from having, very limited access to technology to becoming a successful web developer, all through his own hard work and dedication.
It's truly inspiring, and it shows that with the right mindset and a willingness to learn, anything is anything is possible.
I love these stories. They're uh, so motivating, and they really reinforce the message that we're all capable of achieving, great things, regardless of our background or circumstances.
Absolutely. And the English Globe emphasizes that these stories aren't meant to make us feel inadequate or overwhelmed. They're meant to inspire us, to show us that if others can achieve their dreams, we can too.
So instead of like comparing ourselves to others or focusing on, on our limitations, we can draw inspiration from their journeys and use their stories as like fuel to propel us forward on our own paths to success.
Exactly. And remember, success isn't always about reaching some grand ultimate goal. It's about the journey itself. The process of learning and growing, the satisfaction of, overcoming challenges and expanding our horizons.
So it's about embracing the journey, celebrating the small wins, and never losing sight of our own, unique potential.
Exactly. And the English Globe reminds us that the world is full of opportunities for those who are willing to learn, adapt, and embrace the unknown.
So what are some like practical tips for staying motivated and on track with our learning goals? I think we can all use a little extra encouragement from time to time.
The English Globe offers some great advice on this. They suggest setting realistic goals, breaking down large tasks into smaller, more manageable steps, and celebrating our progress along the way.
So instead of feeling overwhelmed by a huge daunting goal, we can focus on taking, small, consistent actions that will eventually lead us to our desired outcome.
Exactly. And it's important to find ways to make learning, fun and engaging. Experiment with different learning methods, connect with others who share your interests, and find ways to apply your new knowledge and skills in practical ways.
Right. Learning shouldn't feel like a chore. It should be an enjoyable and rewarding experience.
Absolutely. And the English Globe reminds us that the journey of learning and growth is a lifelong adventure. It's about staying curious, embracing new challenges, and never losing our thirst for knowledge.
So it's not about reaching a destination. It's about the journey itself, the process of becoming a more knowledgeable, adaptable, and well-rounded individual.
Exactly. And the English Globe encourages us to see ourselves as lifelong learners, constantly evolving and expanding our horizons.
So instead of seeing like age or experience as limitations, we can view them as assets, as valuable foundations upon which to build new knowledge and skills.
Absolutely. And remember, learning is a gift we give ourselves. It's an investment in our future, a way to enrich our lives and make a positive impact on the world around us.
That's such a powerful message, and I think it's a perfect note to end part two of our deep dive.
I agree. We've explored some really valuable insights from the English Globe, and I hope our listeners are, feeling inspired and motivated to take action.
In part three, we'll delve even deeper into these essential skills, exploring real-world applications and practical strategies for integrating them into our daily lives.
Stay tuned for more inspiring stories, actionable advice, and a few fun surprises along the way.
Welcome back to our deep dive into those essential skills for 2025 and beyond. We've been exploring some really cool insights from the English Globe podcast, building our bridge to success one plank at a time. And in this final part, let's talk about actually putting these skills to work, in the real world.
One thing that really stuck with me from the English Globe is how they don't just talk about skills in like a theoretical way.
Yeah.
They actually tie them to real world situations, showing how they play out in different careers and industries.
Right, like they said, it's not enough to just know about these skills. You got to know how to actually use them. So let's get specific. Can you give us some examples of how these skills translate to real success?
Absolutely. Let's take digital literacy and tech skills, for instance. Think about someone working in marketing today. It's not just about, coming up with catchy slogans anymore. You got to understand how to use, social media analytics, run targeted ad campaigns, maybe even like dabble in a bit of web design.
So even if they're not a programmer, they need a certain level of like tech savvy just to do their job effectively.
Exactly. Or take someone in healthcare. Electronic health records are like becoming standard. Nurses and doctors need to be comfortable using those systems, understanding data privacy, maybe even like using telehealth platforms to connect with patients remotely.
It's crazy how technology is like changing even those traditionally non-technical fields. What about communication skills? How does that work in different professions?
Well, imagine you're, let's say, a project manager leading a team with, members from different countries. You got to communicate clearly and concisely, sure,
Hmm.
but you also need to be, sensitive to cultural differences in how people communicate. Maybe someone's less direct with their feedback, or there are nuances in like how they express agreement or disagreement.
That's where those active listening skills we talked about come in, right? Being able to like pick up on those subtle cues and adjust your communication style, accordingly.
Exactly. Or think about someone in sales. It's not just about having a smooth pitch anymore.
Right.
It's about building rapport, understanding the customer's needs, and communicating the value of your product in a way that really connects with them.
So it's less about like pushing a product and more about creating a genuine connection and understanding.
Exactly. Now let's shift gears to problem solving and critical thinking. These are like fundamental skills,
Yeah.
valuable in literally every job you can think of. Imagine a teacher trying to engage a classroom full of students with, all these different learning styles.
So got to like think on their feet, adapt their lesson plans, maybe even incorporate new technologies to keep those students, interested and involved.
That's a great example. Or think about an engineer designing a bridge. They need to like anticipate potential issues, analyze different structural options, and come up with solutions that are both safe and efficient.
So it's about seeing problems not as roadblocks, but as opportunities to like innovate and improve things.
Precisely. Now, how about emotional intelligence? Where does that fit into the real world?
Well, I think it's especially crucial in leadership roles, right? A
Yeah.
manager who can, read the room, understand their team's motivations, and respond empathetically to their concerns. They're going to be much more effective than someone who's like just focused on the bottom line.
Absolutely. Or think about someone working in, customer service. They're dealing with frustrated people all day long. Being able to like stay calm under pressure, de-escalate those tense situations, and find solutions that leave the customer feeling heard and respected, that takes like a high level of emotional intelligence.
It's about like taking a potentially negative interaction and turning it into a positive one.
Exactly. And finally, we have adaptability and lifelong learning. I think it's pretty clear how those are like essential in a world that's changing so fast.
Right, like the English Globe said, it's not about reaching a destination. It's about constantly evolving and staying, ahead of the curve. But how do you actually do that? How do you make lifelong learning a part of your life?
The English Globe recommends building a what they call a learning habit. It's
Yeah.
like exercise.
Yeah.
You don't wait until you're out of shape to start working out. You make it a regular part of your routine.
So it's about making time each day or each week to learn something new. It could be reading an article, listening to a podcast, taking an online course, whatever fits your interests and goals.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to experiment. Maybe you join a professional organization to connect with people in your field, or you volunteer for a project that forces you to stretch your skills and learn new things.
It's about being proactive and like creating those opportunities for growth.
Exactly. And English Globe reminds us that learning isn't just about acquiring knowledge. It's about expanding our perspectives, challenging our assumptions, and becoming, more well-rounded individuals.
So it's about personal growth as professional development.
Absolutely. And the more we learn, the more adaptable and resilient we become, which are like essential qualities for navigating the complexities of the 21st century.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the key takeaway for our listeners? What do they need to remember as they set out on their own journeys of learning and growth?
The English Globe leaves us with a really powerful message. The future belongs to those who are, curious, adaptable, and committed to lifelong learning. It's about embracing change, challenging ourselves, and never losing sight of our potential.
And remember, you don't have to do it alone. There are so many resources available, both online and offline, to support your learning journey.
So be bold, be curious, and never stop exploring. The world is full of opportunities for those who are who are willing to learn and grow.
We hope this deep dive has been helpful and inspiring. And remember, the future is yours to